Welcome to Feed the Beast. My name is Leigh-Ann Charles-Paul, and I'll be co-hosting with my wonderful husband.
How's it going, guys? This is Chef Chris Paul. We're here with Everything We Eat, a company that focuses on local sustainable sourcing. We currently do meal prep, catering, and interactive cooking classes. In the near future, look out for a food truck. And we'd like to thank you guys for listening in.
It's time to feed your inner beast. Today, this week, we're actually going to talk about the bounce back. Trials, failures, and successes of owning a business. I know we've all been there, so we're just going to talk a little bit about that. And our guest today is Kurt Evans from South End Mass Incarceration dinners and other things. And before we get started, let's just talk a little bit about news. Chris, what do you have, babe?
This year in general, we've seen a lot of outbreaks, more than usual. You know, considering I actually teach Serve Safe, I'm finding it more and more prevalent that there's a lot of mass outbreaks happening. One main example is the Olympics this year. About 1,200 security personnel actually got sick, and they had to replace them with the Army. You know, very extenuating on your costs. One thing that happened is in the cafeteria, someone had hepatitis A, and that just kind of went full blown. And I think we all kind of downplay foodborne illness outbreaks just because we don't see it until it happens, and you're like, oh, this is a real thing. A few other things that happened, you know, we had with the romaine lettuce coming from Arizona. There was an E. coli outbreak, and what happened there is, in general, E. coli just lives in the intestine of cattle. During the butchering, sometimes, you know, someone might make a mistake and it gets tarnished in the meat. In that case, it was lettuce. So, you know, you're wondering, how does that happen? Well, you know, farms are really close to each other sometimes, and just in general, from rain coming down, you have E. coli everywhere, and there's a huge recall. Granted, a lot of lettuce do come from California when it comes to romaine, but there's a large majority from Arizona as well. So that really affected the produce in general. And the most recent was tortilla chips. Right before Cinco de Mayo, there was a huge recall. You know, obviously Cinco de Mayo, you want your salsa, you want all these really cool things. And unfortunately, a lot of places just were not able to restock in time for Cinco de Mayo. So just one thing to look out for, you know, when you're thinking of food, you want to be focused on food safety, because as much as we downplay it, it is a very real threat that you should be aware of.
Yeah, let's highlight a weekly food entrepreneur. We've got Ethan Fox from Senketo. Really cool concept. It's actually a ketogenic meal prep, which is high fat, high protein, and low carbs. And essentially it's for people looking to burn fat really, really fast. Chris, right? You worked with him a little bit?
Yeah, essentially what you're doing is the diet is not for everyone. It's great if you have epilepsy, certain diseases. It actually reduces your risk of stroke. And when you're saying burn fat rapidly, you're talking like, you know, you could burn like 30, 40 pounds of fat in like a month. Because what your body's doing, it transforms into burning fat as its energy source rather than carbs. And your liver is processing fats at such a rapid rate that you're just draining fat. But it is very specific. You could kick yourself out of the diet by eating a banana, and it'll ruin your intestine. You might be in the bathroom for a couple of days. So, you know, this is a service that Ethan himself, I've met with him a few times, actually helping him out, starting it. They're going to really try to get you in the right fit, where if you stick to his meal prep, you'll be good to go if that's the diet for you.
Cool. Maybe we'll have him on the show soon.
Yeah, definitely. I'll reach out.
Oh, that's awesome. So we have our guest here, Kurt Evans. How you doing, Kurt?
I'm good.
Awesome. Welcome. Thank you so much for coming in.
Yeah, it's been a long time. I've followed Kurt for a while on Instagram. He's doing a lot of great things. And, you know, this is why I really wanted to get him in, because it's really tough working on a lot of projects. And I think a lot of people don't realize, like, entrepreneur, it sounds really fun and great, but it's like, I'm like, damn, sometimes I actually just got a job or something every now and then. And, you know, but the struggle is fun. I think if you have the heart for it, it's a good time.
Yeah. So, Kurt, tell us a little bit about yourself, your cooking backgrounds, all that.
I didn't have the conventional cooking background, you know. I always, my dad always said, if you wanted to be somewhere, put yourself there.
Oh.
So, you know, I wanted to be a chef, but growing up, my traditional background came from hunting and fishing with my dad and my grandfather and my uncles.
Mm-hmm.
And my grandma, we would bring food back home, and my grandma is like, I'm gonna show you how to do this one time. So she'll butcher something, and it's like, I'm gonna show you this one time.
One time.
She had to show me like 2-3 times. Some things 2-3 times, but like The fish part, I got it one time, but like
Nice.
animals and stuff like little ducks and rabbits and stuff took more than once.
Cool. Where did you grow up in? Was that?
No, I grew up in Southwest, but
cool.
my father is from Connecticut. So
awesome.
so my summers I spent in Connecticut until I was about 13. I spent my summers in Connecticut.
That's a really cool experience.
Yeah.
Because
So,
I was thinking like hunting, and I'm like, where? And like,
where
where's this
where
happening?
you go?
Yeah.
So
You can in PA, but I guess
yeah, you got, and it's like all types of licenses and stuff.
Yeah.
We would go right up to Vermont, Maine, go fishing, stuff like that. So yeah, I've been going fishing since I was about 6 on like a boat, like a deep sea fishing.
Oh, that's great.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
it's a good
cool.
experience.
What's the coolest thing you've caught? Like deep sea fishing.
Deep sea fishing. The first time I caught a bluefish.
Hmm.
These fish are fighters.
Really?
They fight. It's not like an easy, any type of, especially if you get a fish over a certain amount of weight,
Mhm.
it's going to be tough reeling it in.
Mhm.
But a bluefish, it's just like they're just like, like it's basically like pulling in a baby shark. How it's
Really?
fighting.
Oh wow.
And it took me. I was like, I had to be about like 15. It took me from the front of the boat. I always got to the front of the boat. And the funny thing about it, I always got seasick. I always got seasick. And still go fishing, but it would be like it gets to a point where I would throw up, I would lay down, and as soon as the boat stopped, I'm right out there fishing. Like my dad used to be like, how did you do this?" And the bluefish story, but I was at the front of the boat, and I'm reeling. They're like, "You need help?" I'm like, "No, I got it. And it took me from the front of the boat to the back of the boat.
Wow.
But when I pulled it in, it was at least like the size of this table.
So that would be for those who aren't
It's
here.
like 4.5
feet.
Yeah.
Wow. At
Yeah.
15, that's a great.
So that was the most. But I've caught a turtle like in lakes and ponds, like a huge snapping turtle. Like I thought that was really weird because I was like, "Oh, Dad, look at this." And he's like, "That's not a fish." Like as the head comes out, I was like, "Whoa!"
Yeah. Well, we'll definitely have to go fishing with you at some point in time. But you said it wasn't conventional. But what single event led you to this career path of cooking?
When I was working at Airmark, I worked for Airmark, and I would take things and always replenish things. Like I've used something. Oh man, we had mahi mahi on the home station. I would take them. Like, oh, we're gonna make a mahi mahi burger, and the chef will come to me like, "Oh man, that's great thinking." Now we're actually making more money. And I remember like when Aramark first got the Children's Hospital contract, I was one of the people on the team in there, and I was a barista at the time. I was making like coffee, like so.
Then randomly making my burgers on the side.
And listen, and it went like this. I slid over to the grill because they was like, "Oh, does anybody have grill experience?" Because our grill cook, he hurt his back. He was out for a week. He was out for like more than a week. It's like a week and a half, 2 weeks. He came back. He was making coffee. I was on the grill because I just came in and it was like I had good memory recognition from making the coffee. So it was just like I could take a lot of orders at one time and not really be like, "What did you have? What did you have?" So it was like I would knock like 7, 8 people at once, and then half the time, some people like for breakfast. That's like a specific thing that you usually come to get.
Very
so
specific thing.
I see people coming in most of the time. They'll just give me a head nod, and I already start making their food,
Yeah.
and I just got people out faster.
Yeah.
So from there, I was like, "Oh man, I could do cooking. I could do cooking." So
yeah, that's interesting.
I never went to culinary school, so that's when I say never. It was never the traditional route.
And I think that's one thing with this industry. We find that even when you do go to culinary school, the misconception is that like you become a chef, and there's no direct correlation.
And there's no direct correlation. Like I have a friend, his sister, she graduated from CIA, and she did her extern like over in like Singapore.
Oh wow!
And her husband is like, "Yo, you make burritos now. Like you have all of this debt, and you're making burritos." So it's a lot of people, they don't understand. Like as soon as you graduate culinary school, you're like a chef. Even when you graduate culinary school, you're going to work for somebody, and they're going to say you're going to be saying yes, chef.
Yeah, and you may not even be a line cook. You might be a prep cook. It really comes down to
right?
it really comes down to the experience and work ethic. But there are really no guarantees, and there are federations obviously, but no one cares if you have a chef federation sticker. That doesn't mean
that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. These people, they kind of get these allocates, but they don't it doesn't work for them.
It comes on the back end.
It
That's
comes on
what
the
I
back
found.
end.
Oh,
And you know
okay.
what? You know what it's good for if you go to. I mean, and I can't even say that because I worked at a job where he was like the VP of like, and he didn't even graduate high school. Like he didn't graduate high school, but he's been like he had so much work experience and where he's worked at. He was the head executive chef for ESPN building. So it was just like then he can go to Flick Hospital. I mean, he can go to Compass Group and he can he got a job there just because it's like. But now it's like if you want to do corporate work, you know they're looking for that paperwork.
Yeah.
But some of the best chefs in the city probably never even went to culinary school.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. So essentially, so your first cooking job, you would say, was kind of like from Aramark, from coming from barista. You just kind of fell.
My first cooking job was McDonald's.
Oh,
That was my first cooking job.
Oh, yeah.
McDonald's and Children's Hospital. That was
Oh.
my first cooking job.
Word.
I always had like, because my mother worked for Aramark. My mom worked for Aramark for about 25 years. So I always had a job in Aramark because
within the establishment.
wherever my mom went, I could like, and my mom knew other like VPs and other like account managers. So pretty much when I got into University of Penn College, that was my mom. When I got into University of Penn Hospital cooking, it was my mom. When I got into CHOP, it was my mom because Aramark had all the accounts. But I took in a hiatus from cooking because my mom, she had got an account at Lincoln Hospital. She was like, "Oh, you want to work at Lincoln Hall?" She was like, "I can get you a job doing something else other than cooking." And I was like, "Well, what is it?" It was patient transport. I did patient transport for about 9 years.
Oh, wow.
But meanwhile, that 9 years is doing patient transport, I still had Signature Catering. I started Signature Catering at the hospital.
Oh,
So that
cool.
was side work that I was catering like weddings and stuff. And I started cooking for some doctors, nurses at their houses because they were like, "Oh yeah, you know, we follow you on Instagram. We're Facebook friends. So, oh, can you come cook for me?" Stuff like that. And one of my very good doctor friends, Dr. Serkins, he was like, "Yo, leave." Leave. He's like, "Just go." He was like, "Yo," he's like, "Curtis, I've known you for so long. You're very smart, intelligent. I don't want you to be here for another 5 years." Like, "Oh yeah, man, I want to cook." And then it's like, "Just leave." He's like, "You're young. Your kids are young. So you don't need the insurance right now. Just eat right." he said, "Don't wait till it's too late and then you need the insurance." He was like, "Just go out there." So I haven't looked back since then.
Was that your breaking point? You felt as though you put in your 2 weeks after
Yeah,
that?
and then you know what? I'm not even gonna lie. Like, people that didn't even know me showed me more support than people that knew me.
Yeah,
Like more than family.
yeah.
Like they were
Yeah.
like they seen it in me. Like nurses. Like and one of the nurses was like, "Yeah, you do such a good job here. I don't want you to go, but I want you to go because it's like you gotta go. You should leave and go pursue cooking full time."
No, that's awesome. I think that's one thing to touch up on. I think that's one thing, being a food entrepreneur or entrepreneur in general, you anticipate all this, like, the support's going to come in because you think like, oh, I have a product, you know, because there's large scale entrepreneurs where you might make something that's a product. It's like, oh, this costs $5,000. You're thinking like, I have food, you know, like that's one thing I experienced. Like when we grew up in urban, I'm like, this is like $10. You know, I'm not asking you to like give me your life savings. This is in the middle of the city. It's $10. And you're right. There's people I've met on Instagram that I never knew who showed me more support than people I grew up with.
Dude, yeah, exactly.
And that's one of the things that always knock me. I'm like, how does that make sense?
And that's how I met you. It wasn't even. We met that night at the dinner.
Yeah, at South Philly Barbacoa.
Yeah, we met at that night at the dinner, and then it was just like from there it was like, oh, you follow each other. Then it was like you came into the bar the night where I was where I did the
and it's like
so stuff like that. It was just like
people that don't know each other just come together as a community versus like people you might have known your whole life. It's like, where you been? That's one of the, it's a crazy challenge that it still gets me every now and then. But no, that's awesome, man. I guess going into
Route 23 Cafe. What happened with that? If you want to talk a little bit about Route 23.
Route 23 Cafe was a great learning experience. It was really draining though. It was draining.
So what was it, first of all?
Route 23 was a cafe in the Hunting Park section of Philadelphia. And we were like right around the corner from Grants High School. I mean, great location, down the street from other restaurants. But thing about Route 23, I felt as I was doing too much. I felt as I was doing too much because it was like I could have saved myself a lot of time when I'm in the depot. Like a lot of people, we shop independent. We shop at Restaurant Depot. A lot of people don't have Cisco accounts. So a lot of people go to Restaurant Depot to do their own shopping. We were making a salmon cheesesteak. Now, the salmon cheesesteak is something that was been replicated. I've seen a lot of other people do it, but the concept of how we did it, we were actually making taking salmon fillets, and actually we would fabricate the whole salmon. Like, so we would break. I would get a case with 2-3 salmon in it and break them down. And the salmon cheesesteak came out of, we used the belly fat to make the salmon cheesesteak. So something that would have been thrown away.
Super flavorful.
Yeah. So we use that for the salmon cheesesteak. But, I'm in the restaurant depot. I'm seeing people getting frozen salmon that's making the same thing that we're making. And it's like, they're not even giving half the effort and still charging the same price I'm charging. And it's like, I felt as though I was like really doing too much like stuff that it took a lot of time and effort into doing a lot of stuff like hand cut French fries. We didn't do frozen bag French fries. Only time we would do frozen bag French fries if the depot ran out of potatoes.
Yeah, and that's one of the things, right? I guess part of the challenges is that you do all this effort and you know it, and then you're right. It's like when someone goes out to get fries, you have McDonald's selling fries for $1. You have all these fries, and you could go to San Francisco, you get like some duck fat fries for like $7-8, and they might have been using a frozen bag of fries, and then you're like, damn, what's all this effort for? Because you can only tell people so much, and that's one thing we realized. You do all these labels, you try to tell people this is local, this is sustainable. Yeah, at one point, at Urban, we had our applesauce. We really got it down to the nitty gritty, and then I was just like, damn, people don't even care, and that's like the saddest thing for a chef, I think, to just be like, no one cares. It's like they just want it hot.
Keep trucking though, right? Because at one point somebody is gonna care.
Yes.
At some point.
At some point somebody's gonna care, but it's like, is it worth your sanity? Like, I mean, because like getting up early, like, I mean, it would be times like when you're the owner, you're there usually like every day, all day. Especially when you don't have really good help. That's another thing. Some people are like, oh yeah, they treat it like a job. Oh yeah, I'm gonna come and do my, and that's cool because that's what this is for you. But then it's like, for me, it's like I got clothes and I gotta make sure you clean, because if not, health inspector's down my back. I don't need that. And like I said, and it was weird because I remember the health inspector, somebody called a complaint on me, and it was just like, oh yeah, the bathrooms are horrendous, but we didn't even have public bathrooms. We didn't even have public bathrooms.
So then you're getting that those people that just kind of come in.
And we don't even, and the crazy thing, we didn't even let people use the bathroom just because it was like they would have to come behind our counter.
Yeah.
So it was like, I would have to know you for you to come to the bathroom. And it was just like, is this somebody I know calling health inspector? But it was like, no, this is just people just like having like, and like people will come in and like argue with you about your price. That's another thing. And that's why I kind of would like catering. It's just like, I'm very selective with catering as well. Because it's like, people want this whole table. They want all of this table. Like, yeah, I want the water bottles, the cell phones, everything. But the next thing I was like, yeah, I only want to pay for like these pieces of paper. I don't want to pay for all that. But that's what I want. And it's like, it's not. So it's very selective. Like, usually when I do catering, it's anything for like University of Penn, Drexel, or like an organization that has a budget and is like, here, sign off. And it's not going to be no pushback. And it's like, oh, well, can you take this off, take that off? And it's like, don't ask me to take this off now when you had already asked for a quote for it. Like, it should be like a fee for that. Like, like I just I just sat here and priced all this out for you, gave you everything. Now you're like, oh no, I don't want that. So that's just something about being a restaurateur, owner, an entrepreneur. Like, in this industry is really hard. Like, you can never dictate to your clientele, like, this is what we do, and like, yeah, you should accept it, because they're never going to accept it. Like, oh yeah, I don't care if these is hand cut French fries. I didn't ask for hand cut French fries. I actually like the French fries.
I like the frozen bag.
I actually like the frozen bag.
Yeah. So some of the challenges you mentioned are, you have staffing. Labor is just a big issue. Like you said, a lot of people, it's a job. They're going to clock in. They're going to clock out. And with support, and with cooking, if you don't care, it's like, you see it, and no matter what you do, it doesn't matter, So I think a lot of industries are having a staffing issue. You have overqualified people and underqualified people. You have a bunch of people with degrees, and they just want to push the envelope. They want X amount of dollars. It's like, you don't have any experience. Yeah. And you have people with nothing that you're like, oh, this is a bargain. I could pay him like $8, and it's like, oh, he's actually just chilling for 8 hours.
He's
So then, how do you
$8 and 8
replicate?
hours he's chilling.
Yeah.
And the good thing about what I learned about at Route 23 was because it was like I inherited from another chef friend of mine. So I learned that I didn't need cooks. Like if it got slow, I could send a cook home because I can cook myself. So most people in the restaurant industry who get into the restaurant industry and they're not from the restaurant industry, they're like, oh, I got a restaurant. And it's like, if you can't cook, it's really going to be hard for you because you actually have to pay someone to be here all the time.
Yes.
Like it would be points of times where if it's a slow day, I could send a cashier home because I could cashier and cook. So it was times like that. But like I said, that was draining. That's a draining process.
Because you keep signing up for every role, and then it's like an ongoing process.
Yeah.
So what are you currently working on these days after that challenge with Route 23 Cafe?
Right now, I'm at South Restaurant.
Oh, okay.
That came as a blessing for me to work at South, because working at South, I got the opportunity to work for Black restaurateurs doing Southern food. So that checked off like 2 boxes that I wanted. So it was like. And it's not like, oh, yeah, working for Black restaurant. But it's just hard because I wanted to do Southern food. Like, I really was ready to just, like, leave. Really ready to leave.
Down south.
Go down south. Because, like, that's what I wanted to do. And because I had found, like, a great appreciation for Southern cuisine. Like, a lot of Black chefs, they were like, oh, man, I don't want to be a fried chicken chef.
Yeah.
I want to do French cuisine. I want to go here do any other cuisine than what I grew up eating. So... Once I'm an avid cookbook collector too, so I collect lots of cookbooks. So I have cookbooks from like early 1800s, early 1900s. Once I started seeing like, wow,
there's more than just collards and chicken,
and it was so magical because it was like we got the luxury of going to the kitchen $375, $350, $400, real precise. Yeah. They had one log, half a log, to determine the fire, and it was just like. Imagine making like a souffle and something like this. Like they were actually doing stuff like this at a certain period of time, and it was like reading the recipes. And going,
really, souffles?
Yes.
Ah.
One hand, but then it's like everybody doesn't have the same hand, but then you get that one hand meant 1 cup. So it's just like converting the measurements were kind of easy, but it was just like this was like really magical to what they were doing. So I found a great appreciation for Southern cuisine. So I was ready to leave, and Ben Bynum, he contacted me. He's one of the brothers from the Bynum brothers. They own Green Soul, Warm Daddies, South, and Relish. So they have like some of the best Southern restaurants in the city. So it's like, why not? So he asked me, I have a sous chef position, like to come in, sign me up.
That's great. That's exciting.
And I work in the End Mass Incarceration dinner series. That's something that's like very dear to me because at one point in time, I have like 5 uncles. All of them been to jail. So me growing up, I'm going to jail. Like that's what my uncle went to jail. I'm going to go to jail. It's like, and so I had the conversation with my uncle. And he's like, "You don't want to go to jail?" It's like, got you. I don't want to go to jail. Like, but it was just like so. Now the dinner series is bringing awareness to the traps of the bail system, reentry, everything that compiles of the criminal justice system that's in place to hold poor people of color back. So I put food and conversation in a room together, and ultimately the goal is to lead to policy change, because once I started knowing how money works and people with money, they just don't do things just because. They don't do things out of the kindness of their heart. So it has to be like something in place for things to happen. So like my first dinner, Lieutenant Governor, she ran for Lieutenant Governor Anina Ahmad showed up. Did not know who she was. I just happened to go through the list, and it's like Ben was there. Ben came, he worked front house. And he's like, "Hey, Nina Ahmad's out here?" I said, "No, I didn't know that." I was like, "Who's that?" And she was like, "No, she was the deputy mayor, but now she's running for lieutenant governor." I was like, "Cool," but she was there. She was like
very influential.
Yeah, very, and she was very tentative to what people had to say. She was a great listener, and like she was great. And all of the dinners I bring in someone who has a unique experience running with mass incarceration.
Mhm.
So the first dinner started off with a good friend of mine, Kevin Harden. He's a lawyer. He got locked up like as a kid. He got shot as a kid. Then it's like, he tells the paper, I can't tell you shot me because I'm not a snitch. Fast forward like 10 years later, he's a DA. Now he's the no snitching DA because of what he said in the paper, and it's like, his criminal past. But he had this unique situation because the judge, his judge was actually like, after he got caught like a couple times selling drugs on parole, he was able to still go to finish college. But Meek Mills can't like really a motorcycle. So without getting like 10, 20 years probation. So it's just like, it was a lot, with it. Yeah. So like every speaker has a unique circumstance with the criminal justice system. And proceeds, and I always have people donate books because a cause that's near to me is books through bars. And my uncle was in jail. He read a lot of books, so when he came home, he was able to put his trade into a business. So he really doesn't have to worry about like how a lot of people when they're trying to get jobs, and it's like they could take advantage of you because you're formerly an ex-con. So it's like they treat you differently. So, but he doesn't have to go through that. So
just I guess to like recap for our challenges, trials, tribulations, seems like you've had a lot of experiences, and even through family, even through everything from Route 23 to like now. So what are some key takeaways for our listeners who are trying to start a business or in the early stages of owning their business? Some key advice you'd like to give them?
Staff is important. That's like probably I'm not ranking anything, but that would be like up there. Your sanity. You need to understand what you're getting into, what you're signing up for. If you can talk to other chefs, not just chefs, but chef owners or anyone that owns a restaurant and they're running it by themselves, that doesn't really have like a partner that they have help. Also, I would say understanding your demographic, your audience, who you're trying to serve, because you may have an idea and you want to serve people, and it's not really what they want. It's not really what they want. Yeah, and I would say networking, not so much as in that it's important to what you're doing, but the misconception of you can know a lot of restaurateurs and chefs and everything, and that still won't get people in your door. Yeah, that would be it.
Yeah, you definitely want to, recap on it when you're networking. Besides who you know, it's going to come down to what you know.
Yeah.
So if you knew all the health inspectors, that doesn't mean you pass inspection. If you know all these restaurateurs, that doesn't mean you get a respect.
Yeah.
So you really have to focus on how much time you spend on certain things and see what's the benefit. And sometimes you got to focus on yourself and the concept and push forward, because meeting with a bunch of people, it's like, okay, what does this actually do?
Yeah.
To close it out, we do have we had a bunch of really cool events at the Free Library. If you miss Cook, fortunately we did sell out, but we do have another one coming up later on. It's going to be in August, actually. Besides that, we are up and running almost on the food truck. So I would say hopefully 30 days, fingers crossed, we might be able to launch. So first thing we definitely want to get to is all the night markets, obviously. Any sort of cool festival coming around, we definitely want to participate. So look out for the food truck in the near future.
And it's not going to be just healthy food. We're all about, it's everything we eat is what we're bringing to you guys out there. So we live an 80-20% life. I know a lot of other people do too. So you can expect some fried food and you can expect some grilled food and some healthy stuff. It's whatever we want to do at the time of that festival. But keep up to date with our website, everythingweeat.com. Also, you can follow us on Instagram, hashtag everythingweeat.
Philly, as well as Chris Ball Chef, and be sure to follow Kurt at Kurt Cooks on Instagram. He definitely has some really good posts.
And the EMI dinner series, EMI_dinner series.
Cool. Oh, yeah. And that's on Instagram as well?
Yeah.
Awesome.
And that's the End Mass Incarceration dinners, yes.
Yeah, to close it out, some pro tips. I came up with a term called the true food cost. I think that's something people should look into is just because you bought something for $10 and you sold it for $20 doesn't mean your food cost is 50%, because you should take into consideration your yield, your labor costs, as far as the production cost. So that $10 thing might only have yielded 2 pounds, and then it took Ben 30 minutes, and then you had to fire a grill that took an hour, and you lost. So at the end of the day, you really want to make sure you really have all your components within each recipe in order to get an accurate food cost.
Thank you. That was a really great tip, actually. So thank you all for joining in with us today. Kurt, thank you again so much for coming out here, sharing your expertise with us and your trials and tribulations. It was wonderful to hear. Anything else?
No, we should wrap it. I guess we'll
we'll cut all that. Just cut that.
We'll figure out an outro or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Yeah.
Fade out some music.
Hello everyone, this is Ryan Martin, the production consultant for The Grit Live. If you enjoy our programming, the most important thing you can do to support us is share each episode with your friends and family. You can also leave us a rating and a review on the podcast player of your choice to help others find us. Thank you for listening.